TalkShoe, and Google Hangouts. Today we are breaking down the top 40 corners, and since we have so many cornerbacks to cover as far as skills, tape, all of this, along with news on the Marcus Peters trade, once we get news on what draft picks the Chiefs are officially receiving, we will report that Marcus Peters trade. But until that time comes, we're not saying anything about Marcus Peters. Blake Bortles also got extended until 2020. So there's that, but there's 40 corners, and I know Joey and I, if we both talk at the same time, we're not going to clear all those corners in such a brief time period. So we're going to get straight into the podcast, folks, and break down these corners, starting with my number one defensive back in the entire draft out of Alabama, Minkah Fitzpatrick. I have a top 5 grade on him at the moment. The 6'1", 202-pound Minkah Fitzpatrick had another strong season in 2017. Minkah Fitzpatrick showed he could be the man on tape and is easily the top defensive back in the 2018 NFL draft, whether you rank him as a cornerback or a safety. Minkah Fitzpatrick played field cornerback as well as both safety roles once again in 2017. Minkah Fitzpatrick had 8 deflections from pass breakups and 1 interception in 2017. He also had 38 solo tackles, 22 assisted tackles, 60 total tackles, 8 tackles for a loss, 3 quarterback hurries, and 1.5 sacks to go with those deflections. He only allowed 1 receiving touchdown to Auden Tate back in the first week of the season, did not allow a touchdown from that point forward, and Michael Gallup had 80 receiving yards on him out of Colorado State, and that was the most any receiver got on Minkah Fitzpatrick on tape this year. Now it's time for the Minkah Fitzpatrick SWAT report, and strengths. Minkah Fitzpatrick can line up at field cornerback, boundary cornerback, strong safety, free safety with his versatility. He can jam receivers at the line of scrimmage. He is extremely durable, has tremendous instincts and the football IQ to shadow any route. Fitzpatrick is a natural run stuffer. Fitzpatrick has fluid hips. He knows how to move his hips to match up with receivers when dropping back into coverage. Fitzpatrick can play man coverage, zone coverage, or press coverage effectively. He is capable of lining up as an extra pass rusher off the edge. He's very good at defending against the run. Fitzpatrick knows the cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, and cover 4 schemes. He's capable of being a returner on special teams. He has 4.3 speed and ran a 4.39 in the spring in Alabama. Extremely high football IQ. Weaknesses? There isn't really a weakness with Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's a pretty complete defensive back for the most part. I don't see any weaknesses with him. I also don't see any weaknesses with Saquon Barkley now that he's corrected his vision and his pass blocking. You'd like to see him be more decisive on some runs, I guess, but I don't really consider that a weakness. Bradley Chubb can play in the 43 or the 34 off the edge, and Quentin Nelson's just the complete prospect at the guard position. And you can really make a case for any of those players in the top 4 if you're not taking a quarterback at number 1. And you look at the opportunities, Cleveland at 4, Denver at 5, New York at 6, Tampa Bay at 7, and Chicago at 8. The Cleveland Browns pick at 4. I know Joey's had Minkah Fitzpatrick at number 1 the last 2 weeks. I don't believe he goes that high. I think Cleveland at number 4 is the first realistic option. Then you have Denver at 5 because they're going to release Aqib Talib. They might take Minkah Fitzpatrick, just go by value instead of drafting for need. The Jets at 6 could get Minkah as a second corner to pair with Morris Claiborne, the New York Jets. Then you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at number 7. They could get Minkah, and the Chicago Bears at number 8. All of those teams are Minkah Fitzpatrick potential prospects, and there is a chance that he could fall to 8 if Cleveland passes on him at 4. But he's not going to get past Chicago, and one of the other teams picking ahead of could take him too. Threats? There are no threats with Minkah. He doesn't have the same durability concerns that Marshawn Lattimore had coming out of Ohio State last year. He's a more complete player, and I have Minkah graded higher than a lot of other defensive backs. I gave Eric Berry a 97 coming out of Tennessee, Earl Thomas a 96. I gave Lattimore a 95 grade last year. Minkah has a chance to be special, but you can certainly debate that Minkah isn't on the level of Berry or Thomas coming out of college as a safety or Lattimore as a cornerback coming out of Ohio State. Potential grade 98 out of 99. For 2017, Minkah Fitzpatrick had 11 deflections from pass breakups as a true freshman when he started next to Marlon Humphrey in 2015. In 2016, he only had 7 deflections, but he also had 6 interceptions, 5 tackles for a loss. He showed the versatility to play boundary corner, free safety, and strong safety during his sophomore season. Can play man coverage, zone coverage, or press coverage effectively. He knows the cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, and cover 4 schemes. So that's Minkah Fitzpatrick in a nutshell. We have a top 5 grade on him. I have a top 5 grade on him. So next up, Iowa cornerback Josh Jackson. Now, Josh Jackson is 6'1" to 192 pounds, and he does a lot well on tape. This guy played nickel cornerback next to Desmond King. When he played boundary corner in 2016, Josh Jackson moved from the nickel corner to the field cornerback position. He made an immediate impact, immediate first impression by humiliating Wyoming quarterback Josh Allen in the opener against Iowa. Jackson had 18 deflections from pass breakups and 8 interceptions, with Jackson returning 2 of those interceptions for touchdowns. Josh Jackson, nicknamed Pick Magnet, has had excellent tape in 2017. Jackson continues to showcase the man coverage, zone coverage, and press coverage needed to start in the NFL. Jackson dominated against #1 flanker receivers in 2017 after facing slot receivers in 2016. Josh Jackson only had 1 game all season where he didn't have a deflection from a pass breakup or an interception. Even on days where Jackson had 0 deflections, he balled out, he got an interception, he didn't have deflections versus Ohio State, but he had 3 interceptions in that game and 4 if you count the one that got called back. Jackson limited Iowa State wide receiver Al Lazard to 6 receptions for 23 yards. Lazard scored 2 touchdowns in the red zone on the corner across from Jackson, which really is a testament to how good Josh Jackson is. Deshaun Hamilton, 2 receptions, 46 yards against Jackson. So Josh Jackson's capable of starting right away. Now the strengths, he can play man coverage, zone coverage, or press coverage effectively. Jackson knows the cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, and cover 4 schemes. Extremely durable. Jackson is an effective blitzer. He can stop the run. He's capable of lining up as an extra pass rusher off the edge. Probably the biggest ball hawk corner in the draft if you count Minkah as a safety. I count Minkah as a corner, but some people have Minkah listed as a safety. That's fine. Minkah's DB1 either way. I don't see as much versatility with Jackson, but I see more of a ball hawk with Jackson. And Jackson was Iowa's punt returner as well. Extremely high football IQ. Weakness is he doesn't jam receivers as much as he should. He's not a hard-hitting corner, but he plays extremely smart. He needs to be more consistent in this area despite showcasing effective press coverage, which is great, but is not elite like his man or zone coverage. His athleticism needs to improve as well. He's capable of running a 4.4, but projects to run a 4.5 at this point. Josh Jackson only has 1 season as a full-time starter with his breakout campaign in 2017. Opportunities, New York Jets at number 6 overall, Tampa Bay at number 7, Chicago at number 8, the Bears. We talked about those 3 teams, but then you got San Francisco and Oakland, and that's the subject to change pending the coin toss. But right now I'm mocking San Francisco at 9 and Oakland at 10, but Oakland could win the coin toss and move up to number 9. Josh Jackson may not be a top 5 pick. He's a top 10 pick, though. Threats, Josh Jackson's a very good corner at this point. I think his ceiling to be better than Marshawn Lattimore is there if he can jam more consistently and improve his speed. I believe Jackson can do those things. Plus, I value coverage way more than hard hitting when it comes to corners. I gave him a 97, and I'll admit I was guilty of overhyping Desmond King last year, but Josh Jackson just really looks that good on tape. And the results really speak for themselves. Before 2017, Josh Jackson got stiff-armed by Christian McCaffrey as a true freshman in Iowa's Rose Bowl game, was a nickel corner with 4 deflections from pass breakups in 2016, hardly got any playing experience. Many coaches were impressed with his progress and viewed it as a breakout player for 2017 with Desmond King gone. He isn't as physical or as experienced as Desmond King was. He's much bigger, though, so he can rise up boards with a huge campaign. He had a huge year this year, but he can play man coverage, zone coverage, press coverage effectively. Jackson knows cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, and cover 4 schemes. Next up, my number 3 cornerback, Dante Jackson out of LSU. And Joey's cornerback rankings are a little bit differently. I'm sure he'll be happy to elaborate once he gets on the call. But right now, we're breaking down LSU cornerback Dante Jackson. He's 5'11", 175 pounds. He broke out in 2017. Jackson showed the versatility to play field cornerback, boundary cornerback, nickel cornerback. Jackson had 32 solo tackles, 17 assisted tackles, 49 total tackles, and 10 deflections from pass breakups in 2017. Dante Jackson held Calvin Ridley to 3 receptions for 61 receiving yards. He also held Christian Kirk to 7 receptions for 78 receiving yards. He gave up a touchdown to Kirk, but also made up for it by picking off a pass intended for Kirk. That interception was Dante Jackson's only interception of the entire year. Dante Jackson SWAT report, strengths, Dante Jackson can play man coverage, zone coverage, press coverage effectively. He knows the cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, and cover 4 schemes. He's extremely durable, has the best foot speed of any cornerback in this class. And worst case scenario, he runs a 4.45 40 time. Best case scenario, he breaks John Ross's 40 time. The bottom line is Jackson has the game-breaking speed and athleticism to blanket slot receivers. Jackson is lined up at field cornerback, boundary cornerback, nickel cornerback, dime cornerback throughout his career at LSU. Extremely high football IQ. Weaknesses, Dante Jackson does have the best foot speed of any corner in this draft. That being said, he does struggle against bigger receivers, and this is due to being 5'11". Sidney Jones had the same issue coming out of Washington before the injury to his pro day and was light years better than Kevin King. He was also light years better than Dante Jackson as a prospect at this point. But, you know, Sidney Jones, after he got injured, we had to adjust his potential grade from like a 93 to like an 87. We have a 91 grade on Dante Jackson, and there are some teams like Green Bay at 14, Arizona at 15, the Green Bay Packers at 14, the Arizona Cardinals at 15, the Buffalo Bills at 22, the Tennessee Titans at 25, the Minnesota Vikings at 30 that could all use this guy as a nickel corner. I don't think he's going to make it to my team, the New England Patriots, at 31, even though I'd love to have him. But I have Dante Jackson going in Minnesota right now. And I know the Vikings have 2 corners and Rhodes and Wayne's under contract, but Terrence Newman's a free agent, and they're going to need a nickel corner, and this guy's the perfect fit. So I really believe that. And threats, some teams believe Dante Jackson has issues with discipline. That's the big reason why I don't have Jackson listed as a blue-chip cornerback like Minka or Josh Jackson. He has the upside to develop into a Pro Bowl corner. It should be a great starter in the NFL. He's clean off the field, but teams believe he has issues with discipline. So if he falls to day 2, this is why he will fall to day 2. I've got a 91 grade on him based on potential. I think he's the 3rd best corner just based on potential, and I'm huge when it comes to players with potential. Dante Jackson became a nickel cornerback in 2016. He had 8 deflections from pass breakups. If he can build on that in 2017, he's going to be a riser. He did build on that. Man coverage, zone coverage, press coverage. He knows all that stuff. He knows the cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, and cover 4 schemes. So that being said, Dante Jackson is my number 3 cornerback. And we get to my number 4 cornerback, Holton Hill out of Texas. I have a first-round grade on Holton Hill, too. The 6'3", 200-pound Holton Hill has been the field cornerback of the Texas Longhorns in each of the past 3 seasons. He dominated versus Big 12 receivers like James Washington out of Oklahoma State and Al Lazard out of Iowa State on tape. He didn't finish the 2017 season despite these strong outings due to getting dismissed from Texas. I'm willing to look past this with Holton Hill. I don't know if NFL teams are willing to look past this with Holton Hill, but I am right now. The reason I say that is because his tape is so exceptional. He reminds me of Trumaine Johnson with the off-the-field concerns that both Marcus Peters and Janoris Jenkins had coming out of college. He has the football IQ to play cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, and cover 4, though. He's got that immense football IQ along with the best size among the 2018 NFL draft cornerbacks, and I think that's what ultimately makes Holton Hill a first-round pick. Holton Hill can play man coverage, zone coverage, or press coverage effectively. Hill knows the coverage schemes. We talked about that already in the previous paragraph, but Hill is a very physical cornerback, and one could argue he's the best press coverage corner in the entire draft. His father was a linebacker at UTEP, and sometimes I wonder if Holton hits harder. That's not a knock on Holton's father. I'm sure he had a lot of pop back in his prime, but I'm just that impressed with the intensity that Holton Hill brought to the football field. This guy can play both field and boundary corner on either side. He can be used on special teams. He has an extremely high football IQ. Weaknesses, Holton Hill has a tendency to miss tackles on a few plays. He has 4.5 speed for a cornerback. He ran a 4.56 40 time coming out of high school. He didn't face a wide receiver with 4.4 speed in the Big 12 this year. And even though he shut down Washington and Lazard's projected to run a 4.6. We don't know what Washington's going to run, but he may end up running a slower 40 time than Holton Hill. So be prepared for that. I mean, Holton Hill shut down James Washington 2 years in a row on tape, so there's a lot to like, regardless of the speed, because the coverage makes up for it. Opportunities, Buffalo Bills at 22, Tennessee Titans at 25, Minnesota Vikings at 30, New England Patriots at 31, where I have him mocked, and the Browns at 33. Holton Hill is one of these corners that is better than every receiver in this draft. So he's a first-round talent for me at this point. I'm not sure where he ends up, but he has first-round talent. Threats? Holton Hill's pretty durable when healthy, so I'm not concerned with his durability, despite him missing some games in 2016 due to injuries. He also has a limited amount of I'm still here. I'm just refreshing the TalkShoe page, folks. So, yeah, and you're looking at Holton Hill, 20 career starts. He got suspended from Texas after failing 3 drug tests, so he does have some off-the-field concerns. I think you have to overlook that, though, because the potential for Holton Hill to be a Pro Bowl corner is there if he keeps his nose clean. At the same time, one more infraction leading up to the draft is going to drop him in the same draft range as Alfonso Denard, the corner who played next to Prince Amukamara at Nebraska, who's no longer in the NFL. Because if he fails another drug test leading up to the draft, he's going to fall to around 6 or 7. There's a reason why I have a first-round grade on him. There's also a reason why Walter Football has a 4th to 6th round grade on him. There's 2 ends of the spectrum with Holton Hill, and it really comes down to how concerned you are about his character, how concerned you are that he's not going to fail a drug test in the NFL. So that's really the big threat here. I think the potential is there, though, with Holton Hill. I gave him a 91 grade for potential, and he shut down better receivers on tape than Isaiah Oliver. So that's why I gave him the tiebreaker over Oliver. And the next cornerback that we're going to get to before Isaiah Oliver, Mike Hughes out of Central Florida. But Holton Hill played at Lamar High School in Texas before going to Austin. He started the final 8 games for Texas and got the Big 12 Freshman of the Year honors at cornerback as a true freshman. Couldn't build on that as a sophomore. Thing is, Holton Hill could be a huge riser with a dominant 2017 season. He had some good games versus D.D. Westbrook and James Washington in 2016. He can play man coverage, zone coverage, press coverage. He knows all the coverage schemes, cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, and cover 4. So there's that. We are officially 22 minutes into this podcast, and we've cleared through all the first-round corners on my board. So we're going to get these next 3 round 2 corners, and then we're going to have a run on round 3 corners. And then Joey might call into the call, depending on what happens. But number 5 is Mike Hughes out of Central Florida. And for me, the 5'11", 191-pound Mike Hughes took the NCAA by storm. And this is a guy that really took the NCAA by storm as a field cornerback. This was his first year as a starter. He kept my top-ranked receiver, Anthony Miller, in check in Central Florida's meeting versus Memphis. Hughes gave up a touchdown to Miller in the rematch during the conference championship game. Mike Hughes led Central Florida to a perfect season, 37 solo tackles, 12 assisted tackles, 49 total tackles, 11 deflections from pass breakups, 4 interceptions, 1 defensive touchdown, 1 kickoff return for a touchdown, and 2 punt returns for touchdowns in 2017. Hughes can be a cover corner or a return specialist on special teams too. Mike Hughes SWAT report. Mike Hughes, he can play man, zone, and press coverage. He has fluid hips, knows how to move his hips with wide receivers when dropping back into coverage. He can play man coverage, zone coverage, press coverage effectively. He knows the cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4 schemes. Extremely high football IQ. Weakness, 1-year starter. That's the big issue with Mike Hughes. Opportunities, 33 Cleveland Browns, 37 We're going to be back on TalkShoe in a second, guys, but right now I am calling back into TalkShoe. But the Jets at 37, the Buccaneers at 38, the Bears at 49.
Your entry is not valid, or your call is not scheduled at this time. 5, 4, 7. Welcome to TalkShoe. Please enter the call ID followed by the pound key. You are now joining the call. TalkShoe. Recorded live.
All right, we are back.
Unmuted.
We are officially back on TalkShoe, folks. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but the Cleveland Browns, the Jets, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 38, the Chicago Bears at 39, and the Raiders are all opportunities. New England could be an opportunity as well if Oakland wins the coin toss, because New England would be pushed up to 41 in that scenario. Mike Hughes has first-round talent and Pro Bowl potential, but he may fall to the second round due to off-the-field concerns. The threats, Mike Hughes got dismissed from North Carolina as a freshman. One of the rumors I heard is that he got arrested at North Carolina. I'm not commenting on this since it's not my concern. I'll just point out how teams need to pay attention to it. I have a 91 out of 99 grade on Mike Hughes, and Mike Hughes began his career at North Carolina. He transferred to Central Florida following his freshman season. So that's it with Mike Hughes. And now we get to my final cornerback with a Pro Bowl grade, Isaiah Oliver, who I mentioned briefly. And Oliver, I think he's the sixth best corner based on potential, but I think he's the third best corner if you're just looking at who's the safest corner, who's got the best floor. I think if you look at it from that standpoint, you have to say Oliver's a top 3 corner, but the 6'1", 195-pound Isaiah Oliver was a nickel cornerback next to Chidobe Awuzie and Akello Weatherspoon in 2016. Oliver took over as the field cornerback for Colorado in 2017 and dominated in that role with 13 deflections from pass breakups and 2 interceptions. Oliver's SWAT report, Isaiah Oliver started at field cornerback, boundary cornerback, and nickel cornerback. Oliver can play man coverage, zone coverage, or press coverage at a high level very consistently. Oliver dominates against the run. Oliver knows the cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, and cover 4 schemes. He's extremely durable. He hits hard. He does a lot well on tape and can stop the run. He has an extremely high football IQ. The weakness is Isaiah Oliver's a pretty complete corner. He gets beat in the red zone despite dominating elsewhere. One of Sam Darnold's targets beat him in the end zone, and Darnold carved him in that game. I mean, this guy gave Josh Rosen fits, but Darnold absolutely carved Oliver on tape this year. I mean, Oliver did make some good tackles, some good plays, but he got carved by Darnold too. Opportunities, 38 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 39 Chicago Bears, the Oakland Raiders, the New England Patriots with San Francisco's pick in the Garoppolo trade, and the Green Bay Packers at 45, where I currently have Oliver mocked. Isaiah Oliver has first-round talent, but I have a few other corners ranked ahead of him, so he fell to the second round. Threats? Isaiah Oliver has no threats. He is one of the safer corners in this class. He showed the intangibles to start right away at the College All-Stars Challenge on ESPNU along with his tape in 2017, and I really believe that he is the safest corner after Minkah Fitzpatrick and Josh Jackson. He's probably the safest cornerback you can draft in this class because he just brings a lot of strong qualities to the table, and I really look for him to step up to the plate and have a tremendous impact for the Colorado Buffaloes. So I think he's going to be one of these players that really does step up to the plate here and make an impact. I gave him a potential grade of 91 out of 99. But Isaiah Oliver played next to Chidobe Awuzie and Akello Weatherspoon. He's taking over as the field cornerback for Colorado in 2017. He knows man zone press. And, yeah, I thought I corrected that. But we'll move on to Carlton Davis. I really don't have time to proofread on the air. I thought I corrected that. But, all right, Carlton Davis out of Auburn, second-round corner. The 6'1", 203-pound Carlton Davis had a pretty good season for Auburn with 11 deflections from pass breakups. Carlton Davis deserves to get drafted before Alabama wide receiver Calvin Ridley because he kept Ridley in check and dominated in that game, limiting Ridley to 3 receptions for 38 yards. Davis also limited Christian Kirk to 8 receptions for 62 yards. While Carlton Davis balled out versus Alabama and Texas A&M, he also struggled versus Georgia. He had ups and downs versus Clemson and Central Florida on tape, though. Time for the Carlton Davis SWAT report after watching 5 games of tape. Here is the data I have compiled, folks. Carlton Davis has started at both field and boundary cornerback. Carlton Davis can blanket someone in man or zone coverage. He knows cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, and cover 4 schemes. He's extremely durable. He has an extremely high football IQ. The weakness is Carlton Davis is inconsistent with press coverage. Sometimes he owns his receiver with press coverage if you watch his tape versus a team like Ole Miss. He also gets owned in press coverage too, as one of Georgia's wide receivers knocked Carlton Davis flat on the ground in the SEC championship game despite his size. Opportunities: 39 Chicago Bears, 41 Oakland Raiders, 43 New England Patriots, 45 Green Bay Packers, and 53 Buffalo Bills. These are teams that could be looking at Carlton Davis. The threat with Carlton Davis is he has a really difficult personality. A friend of mine told me he's too stubborn. By that, I mean he will only play field or boundary. He will not move over to the nickel corner if it will help his team win, and that kind of attitude can be toxic for NFL teams when you consider he got pushed on the ground at field cornerback in this year's SEC championship game. A change to nickel might be what he needs, but he needs to impress teams in the interview process and say he will play wherever teams put him at the combine, because if he doesn't, he's going to move down on boards. I have an 89 out of 99 potential grade with Carlton Davis. I think there's a lot of upside, but I also think you're getting a project player. He had 8 deflections from pass breakups as a true freshman and 10 deflections from pass breakups in 2017. He can play man and zone effectively. He knows the cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, and cover 4 schemes. So there's a lot to like with Carlton Davis, but the attitude can rub you the wrong way. Now we go from a high upside corner, my number 7 corner, Carlton Davis, to a very safe corner who I have a 3rd round grade on, who's probably the 4th safest cornerback you can draft. And at number 8 in my cornerback rankings, we have Boston College cornerback Isaiah Oliver. And Isaac Yiadom Ryan is going to call in soon, so get ready for Ryan to make his cameo on this podcast at any moment. But Isaac Yiadom out of Boston College is the field cornerback for Boston College. He had 36 solo tackles, 17 assisted tackles, 53 total tackles, 7 deflections for pass breakups, and 2 interceptions in 2017. Yiadom also dominated the 2018 Senior Bowl practices before having 3 deflections for pass breakups in the actual Senior Bowl game. Yiadom has 2nd-round talent, but is going to be a huge catch for a team drafting early in the 3rd round. Yiadom faced 3 NFL wide receivers and rose to the occasion in each contest. In a loss to Notre Dame, Yiadom held Equanimous St. Brown to 1 reception for 3 receiving yards. In a loss to Clemson, Yiadom held Clemson wide receiver Deion Kane to 3 receptions for 25 yards, and Yiadom also had 2 deflections from pass breakups along with an interception on Kelly Bryant thanks to a quarterback hurry from Harold Landry in that game. Yiadom held On Tate to 2 receptions for 12 yards. Is that you, Ryan? Is that you, man?
Hey, what's up, buddy?
We're talking Isaac Yiadom on the call here, and this is the first 3rd round corner, but I ranked 7 cornerbacks in the first 2 rounds. Minkah Fitzpatrick, Josh Jackson, Dante Jackson, and Holton Hill are my 4 first-round cornerbacks. My 3 second-round cornerbacks are Mike Hughes, Isaiah Oliver, and Carlton Davis. Those are the 7 corners I have 1st and 2nd-round grades on. Any thoughts on this list? Because this is a very deep cornerback draft, and I know there's guys that we haven't gotten to yet that you could make a case for as potential safe picks, including Isaac Yiadom, who I'm about to discuss. You could argue he's the 4th safest corner, even though he doesn't have the upside of these other corners. You could argue, based on the tape and everything, he's the 4th safest corner. So what are your thoughts on this class so far?
I mean, really, the cornerback class from the 2018 class in the NFL draft is really deep. I'm looking forward to seeing where certain individuals fall. The one guy I'm really high on that doesn't have a great homework around is going to be the Monday guy I've been expecting for a little while. I mean, he shows a lot of athleticism and different things like that. But then it's also curious to see where guys like McFadden drop down to, because they were ranked so high for so long, and now it looks like they might be a 2nd round or even a 3rd round pick because of other different talents that's looked up. I still think Jackson maybe is one of the safest cornerbacks though in the draft though so far.
Yeah, there's 2 Jacksons.
Who was the kid out of Ohio State again? Ward.
Denzel Ward. We're going to get to him after in a little bit because he's number 11 on this cornerback rankings. And if he was 6 foot, if he was 6 foot or 6'1", he'd be not in my top 5. That's my only deal breaker. He's 5'10", but if he were 6'0", he'd be in my top 5. Okay, hear me out with these cornerbacks. That's really my only objection. But Isaac Yiadom out of Boston College really doesn't have any weaknesses. He might not have the upside of a Pro Bowl corner, but this is a guy that if he goes to a team like the Giants, he can start out in a depth role. And if one of these corners slips up again, like Janoris Jenkins or Rogers Cromartie or Eli Apple, if one of them slips up again this season, he could come in and take that starting spot. He's not giving it back, and one of those corners would get shipped in that situation. So I have Yiadom to the Giants at 66, but you could definitely argue that Isaac Yiadom out of Boston College, who we watched on tape, who you gave a second-round grade to, is certainly warranted of a second-round grade. And I think the potential for him to move ahead of Harold Landry is there too, because Landry's been dealing with some injuries this year while Yiadom's been completely healthy. So I do think if Yiadom balls out at the combine, he actually has a window of opportunity to jump Harold Landry.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree 100%. I think a lot of it's going to be now, what separates the corners right now for the 2018 draft class is going to be how they perform at the combine. Are they going to be able to demonstrate the skills and the speed necessary to succeed in the pros?
Because even though I think he could go as early as 63 to New England, but Yiadom's someone who can move up if he dominates the combine. Because I think the Browns at 65, the Giants at 66, the Colts at 67, and Tampa Bay at 69 are all great fits. And there's not really a threat with Yiadom. He might not have the ceiling of a Pro Bowler, but he's got a very good floor. And you can rank these cornerbacks based off potential like me, or you can grade these cornerbacks based off a floor. Who's the safest guy? Who's going to make an immediate impact right away? And if you rather get a guy that's going to be a safe pick rather than a high upside pick, you could definitely make a case that Yiadom's a top 5 corner in this class. So, yeah, this is a very good draft class, though, at cornerback. 10 deflections in 2016. We'll move on to cornerback number 9, because the cornerbacks I put at 9 and 10, you're going to have an issue with me ranking them ahead of Denzel Ward and Jair Alexander. We're going to start with Nick Nelson out of Wisconsin.
Jair Alexander was injured a little bit of the time. Chris, how could you do that to Denzel Ward, knowing that Jair Alexander even has question marks about his health?
Oh, okay, we'll get to those guys in a second. We talked Nick Nelson and J.C. Jackson. I'm going to mention them, and you could tell me why I'm wrong about ranking them high above Denzel Ward and Jair Alexander, because Nick Nelson's 5'11", 208. He played both field and boundary corner. He can play man and press. He's durable, but the thing with Nick Nelson out of Wisconsin is he struggles with zone coverage. Zone coverage is a big weakness for Nick Nelson, and he also struggles with plays in the end zone. And he lets receivers get separation too easily. Does not look like a corner with 4.4 speed, and he struggles against the run. But he has the man and press coverage you look for. So he's a project corner.
You just said it right there. He just gave you my perfect argument. He doesn't do the zone well, and he has time staying on it. He has a hard time staying on the man. Chris, how is he going to be able to sit there and recover from the zone if he makes a misread or anything else like that?
I think the ceiling for him to be a higher graded corner than someone like Jair Alexander or Denzel Ward is there, but he's also a bigger project, because even if he has a slightly higher ceiling than Jair or Ward, he's not a safer corner. And I think we both agree on that. We both done our homework on these corners, and I think we both agree that those are safer corners. But my rankings are strictly based on upside. And I think while Nick Nelson has a lot of upside and he's got good size and all these other different tools, he only had one good season with 21 deflections and really showcased the man coverage and press coverage. He didn't showcase the other things you'd like to see. And he's someone who could easily fall behind Denzel Ward and Jair Alexander. I mean, there's a reason people don't have this guy as high as I do.
Well, exactly. But I mean, I guess my thing though is, like, if he's having trouble and he can't play the zone very well, I mean, that's such a huge part of the NFL. And then, like you had mentioned though, I mean, I guess my thing is, did you get a combine invite, or are we just going based on like his game?
I'm going off his game film, because he had 15 deflections at Hawaii, but then he transferred to Wisconsin. He had to sit out a year. So he really only has 2 years of starting experience.
Wisconsin plays a professional style type defense. So for him to go from like a, Hawaiian defense where he thrives, and then all of a sudden to get into something a little bit more real and more pro, I mean, to me, that's a huge red flag, Chris.
I mean, he had 15 deflections at Hawaii. He sat out to transfer to Wisconsin, but he had 21 deflections at Wisconsin in that first year, and he really had a good season on tape. I don't think he has the football IQ to play in a cover 4 or cover 3 defense. I think he can play in cover 2 if you make him play man or press, but he's only going to do well in those schemes. He's limited. He's not someone you can plug and play in any type of scheme, and that's going to limit his chances of success. Yes, he does have a little bit more upside because he's a little bit bigger and more physical than some of these other corners, but at the same time, there are questions with Nick Nelson. And number 10 is J.C. Jackson out of Maryland, 6'1", 193. He lined up at both field and boundary corner. The rest of his game is a huge project. This guy has elite man coverage. If you were telling me which corners had the top 5 best man coverage, this guy would be in the top 5. But the rest of his game is a project. Durability, size, and man coverage give him a landslide edge over other corners like Ward and Alexander. And I know you're going to agree to disagree with me, Ryan, but this is the thing with J.C. Jackson. His man coverage is awesome. He's got good durability. He's big at 6'1", 193. Thing is, he struggles with both zone and press coverage. He has trouble wrapping up tackles on running plays. He's not a hard hitter. He gets beat by wide receivers too easily, worse than Nick Nelson, I might add, and his football IQ needs to improve. So there's a lot with J.C. Jackson where on one end of the spectrum, you're like, wow, his man coverage really impressive, but then the rest of his game is a project. And while the potential to be better than Jair and Denzel is there, you're taking a risk by taking this guy over those guys. Because I see a very good corner rather than a Pro Bowler. Teams are going to ask himself if he's worth the investment with man coverage being his only huge strength at this point. I think some teams like Tampa Bay, the Jets, the Packers, the Cardinals, and Texans could look at this guy, but at the same time, even though I have this guy at number 10, he might fall to number 12 or number 13. He could even fall out of the top 15. I mean, you could definitely make the case that
I think he might fall out of the top 13.
I gave an 88 grade, but this is a guy that can only play cover 1 and cover 0. He's really limited as far as tape goes. And next, we're going to get to a corner you like, Denzel Ward. He's 5'10", 191 pounds. That's really the only reason I have him lower than most. I do like him more than Eli Apple, which I don't understand why I like him that much, but it's like I like him more than Eli Apple, yet I'm too much of a pussy to take him in the first or second round. You really don't understand what I'm thinking here when it comes to this Denzel Ward assessment. Yes, he took over for Lattimore and Conley, but I think Ward moved to field cornerback despite being 5'10", and he had 15 deflections this year. 5 came in the Indiana game, but he got schooled on tape versus Simmie Cobbs Jr. He got carved versus Baker Mayfield. He kept Deshaun Hamilton and DJ Moore in check, though. He didn't play in the bowl game against USC because he wanted to avoid an injury. And he's lined up pretty much everywhere at corner. He's lined up against number 1 receivers, number 2, and slot receivers. He has the body of a nickel corner, but I think he could be a very good nickel corner. We've seen Ohio State cornerbacks come in and thrive in that nickel role. I mean, Eli Apple had a good rookie year in the nickel, but he struggled this year. Bradley Roby's been a great nickel cornerback for the Denver Broncos, and Ohio State's produced very good nickel cornerbacks. So Denzel Ward, he can fly around the field. He has excellent man and zone coverage, capable of running a 4.40, incredible speed. He's extremely hard hitting. Like against Maryland, Gus Johnson basically said that Denzel Ward brought the barbecue and he didn't get an invite or something really, really crazy. And his hard hitting is just amazing. Even though he's 5'10", he is fly as a mother when it comes to hard hitting. And that I think that's the biggest reason why people still have a first-round grade on him, and they're willing to look past the height.
Well, that's what surprised me so much, though, is his height and size is so little, yet he has these big hitting plays and these athletic playmaking abilities to be able to jump, and it looks like he's like 6'2", jumping up and down, but he's only 5'10". So I mean, I gave him a lot of kudos for that. And like you mentioned before, he took over for Lattimore as well. In Ohio State, I mean, this is like he took over for 2 NFL Pro Bowler, Pro Bowl caliber players already. So I mean, he's already proven himself.
Yeah, and Ohio State's produced a factory of good cornerbacks, Ryan. That's the thing. It's like Damone Arnett may have struggled this year, but he'll probably do better next year as a senior since he's coming back. And Ohio State's just produced that lineage with NFL cornerbacks. They've developed that reputation where they've become one of the premier schools with cornerbacks, not on the level of LSU or Alabama, but they're one of those teams where if they have a corner that's draft eligible, you're taking notice. And the press coverage is really my only issue with Denzel Ward. But he hits hard to make up for it. He runs a 4.40. I have Green Bay, Houston, Dallas, the Los Angeles Chargers, and Panthers as fits for him in round 3. His stats check out. He's expected to run a strong 40 time. Maybe he's getting hyped up as a first rounder strictly due to Ohio State's history with cornerbacks. If that's the case, he's this year's Marlon Humphrey, a.k.a. the big school corner the media overhypes. And I know you're going to be like, hold on. But I think really the only threat with him is that he's 5'10". I think you're getting a very safe corner that can do a lot on tape. I have an 87 potential grade on him, but I would say this guy's the 6th or 5th best corner as far as the safest corner in this draft goes. I'd say he's the 5th safest corner in this draft. Even though I have him at number 11 on these rankings, I'd say he's the 5th or 6th safest corner. And that's assuming if you count Jair at 5 and this guy at 6. But I'd say this guy's probably the 5th or 6th safest cornerback you can draft, even though I have him at number 11 on my rankings.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because you could look at these guys based on who's the safest, and you can look at the potential. I put more of an emphasis on potential, which is why I hit and miss with prospects, and I'll admit that I do hit and miss. I've hit and miss on some prospects last year. But let's talk Jair Alexander, because there's 40 cornerbacks to cover. We need to do our best to try to get some of these corners to take pressure off Joey. But let's talk Jair Alexander. This guy missed 6 games due to an injury and did not record a single deflection until November. He got all of his deflections in November, and that's really the reason I'm lower on him than others. But I think the window of opportunity to move back in the late first round is there. And you shared my SWAT report on Jair Alexander saying he's still a round 1 guy. Why don't you tell me why he's still a round 1 guy before I mention some of the strengths and what coaches have said about him? Go ahead. You got the floor, man.
Well, I think as long as he stays healthy, which I think he will, he had like too many major injuries where the coach can really step back and say, hey, that's a huge red flag. So as long as he stays healthy, which I'm sure he will with the right training and stuff. I mean, he's a playmaker. He's real physical. He can jump the ball. He reads the quarterback well. And I also like how he kind of lines up against the wide receivers too. Not too close and not too far. He gives them just the right amount of space. So in my personal opinion, I'd say he's probably top 5 safest cornerback in the draft, even though his health might be a slight concern. But as far as what is he going to give you every Sunday, which is 100%, the inspirational teammate, absolutely. You can't put a value on that.
You really can't. And the strengths, man coverage, zone coverage, and press coverage to succeed in the NFL is there. He knows every type of coverage scheme. He has an extremely high football IQ. Jair may not be as fiery as you want, but he's fierce. He has the eyes of someone who's going to give it his all and compete with a ton of intensity. He might not be vocal, but he's got the eye of the tiger. He's got that eye of intensity where he's going to bring his A game every week. He's a competitor. You know what you are getting with him. He plays with more conviction than any cornerback in this class, and it's a big reason why some people still have a round 1 grade on him. Even though he only had 4 deflections statistically, he missed 6 games due to an injury. And they aren't looking at the stats. Teams are looking at what this guy brings to the table as a whole and how he cleaned up some of his technique and coverage. He got voted team captain as a junior. People love that leadership. They love the passion, Ryan. And this guy's probably the best ball hawk outside of Josh Jackson out of Iowa. And you can tell this guy has a chance to be something special. If he puts everything together at the combine, this is a guy who I'm going to probably have to move back into round 1. So those are the strengths. I think he needs to do better against the run. And I think receivers with deep threat ability can expose him. But Jair's a pretty complete corner. You'd like to see his burst off the snap as far as footwork with coverage be slightly quicker. But overall, he's a pretty complete cornerback. I don't think he has as high of a ceiling as Jackson or Holton Hill or Mike Hughes. He might have a better floor, though. And he's a safe pick for that reason if you're willing to look past the durability concerns. And that's the thing. If you're willing to look past that, you should take this guy in the first round. Because I had this guy as my number 1 cornerback in the summer, Ryan. Remember, we both had this guy in the top 10 back in the summer before the injuries took place.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Is I feel like he'd be more of a safe second-round pick. Like, you don't want to quite pick him in the first round. The pan-out potential is absolutely incredible.
Yeah. It's like Desmond King fell to round 3, but he ended up being a huge steal. And then the number 13 cornerback for me, we'll get to McFadden in a second, but the number 13 corner is a guy that really caught my eye on tape. And he might not get drafted this early, but that is J.J. Dallas out of Louisiana Monroe. He only has 6 career starts, but this guy just wowed me on tape. He held Anthony Miller to 2 receptions for 29 yards, which was a season low for Anthony Miller out of Memphis. He also had 5 deflections from pass breakups in those 6 starts before his season-ending injury. This guy transferred from Houston to Louisiana Monroe. I know Walter Football is an undrafted grade on this guy, but I watched J.J. Dallas's tape when coming up with my underclassmen tracker rankings, and this guy really impressed me on tape when I was going through the underclassmen deadline tape. And this guy can blanket receivers. I mean, I really like what J.J. Dallas does, but he's a 1-year starter, and he only has 6 career starts. And he held Anthony Miller to 2 receptions, but under 30 yards, but what else has he done to boost his resume in only 6 career starts? He transferred from Houston to Louisiana Monroe. He had to play JUCO for a year. Teams are going to want to know why J.J. Dallas left Houston. So as much as I love this guy's tape, his football IQ and everything, only have 6 games of tape. Other teams might not be comfortable with taking a guy with 6 games of tape this early. This guy might be a day 3 pick that ends up being a huge steal, though, because I think the potential, while he's a project, I think the potential to be a good starting cornerback is there with J.J. Dallas. I mean, I really like what I saw in his Louisiana Monroe tape. Have you seen Dallas, or should we just get to Tarvaris McFadden?
I feel like we should get to Tarvaris McFadden.
All right, he's the final cornerback with a 3rd-round grade and 6'2", 205. Lined up at field cornerback. He had 17 deflections in 2017, but this is the thing. He had 5 deflections after the contest against Miami. Got off to a great start, went 6 games without a deflection, but he finished the year on a high note. And I'm pleasantly surprised that he ended the year with 10 deflections, because if he dominates the combine, he's in that same category as Denzel Ward and Jair Alexander, where if he dominates the combine, he can move into the 1st round, because I really believe this is Florida State's best corner since Xavier Rhodes to enter the NFL draft. I mean, I don't think he's as good as Jalen Ramsey, and I feel like kicking myself in the teeth for forgetting to mention Jalen Ramsey when breaking down the SWAT report. I really should be ashamed of myself, because Jalen Ramsey's a baller and a beast. He's not going to be Jalen Ramsey good, but I think he has a chance to be as good as Xavier Rhodes. And Florida State's produced really good corners. They've got the highest paid corner, and they've got Jalen Ramsey, who's probably going to be the future highest paid corner. So McFadden, you know what you're getting with these Florida State corners, but man coverage, zone coverage, and press coverage is there. This guy knows all the coverage schemes at 6'2", 205, which was the exact height and weight Xavier Rhodes had coming out of 2013. There's a very high football IQ. This guy's clean off the field. He went to Florida State, which is a huge party school. I mean, he got burned on plays at times this year. He went 6 games without a deflection. He got exposed at different times, but there's not really a threat with McFadden. And this guy was our number 2 corner behind Jair Alexander heading into the year. We had this guy ahead of Mink at one point. So I think the potential to sneak into round 1, even though I have an 85 potential grade on him out of 99, I think there's a lot of corners with a higher ceiling. This is a pretty safe prospect, and he may not have a ceiling, but he's got one of the better floors. I'd say this guy is the 15th best upside, 8th best floor. He might fall to round 3, but he could end up being a steal just like Desmond King. I've got the Chargers, Panthers, Rams, Titans, and Bengals as fits. What are your thoughts on this guy, McFadden, Ryan?
You said I've had McFadden as a 1st-round grade for a while, just because he did go to Florida State, because they can produce talent. I like the tape, it's real physical, quick, and everything else like that. So I appreciate McFadden personally on defense. Granted, he probably won't get drafted until the 3rd round.
But he's going to be a steal just like Desmond King. We both agree on that.
I think realistically, depending on how everything plays out in the next couple months, I think realistically he is a 2nd-round pick.
Absolutely, but there's 2 corners at 15 and 16. Both went to Stanford, so I have 85 grades on both corners. Elijah Holder and Quentin Meeks. And Holder can play man, boundary, or field cornerback. I have him graded higher because I thought he did more versus Darnold and USC. But the thing with Elijah Holder is while he doesn't have very many weaknesses on tape, he is got injury issues. He only played 6 games this year. He only played 4 games in 2016. And Quentin Meeks hits harder. He's way better in press coverage. He might not be as dominant in man and zone as Elijah Holder, but he's way better in press coverage. And I know Jonah Tolles is a first to second round grade on Quentin Meeks. I read an interview Quentin Meeks did. He's the son of Ron Meeks, and he played baseball as a kid growing up, so that's helped him prepare to play this cornerback position. So there's really a lot to like with Quentin Meeks, too. I think Meeks is actually one of the safer picks. I mean, I think just like Denzel Ward, Jair, and McFadden, this is actually one of the safer players. I'd actually say that Quentin Meeks is one of the 10 safest corners you can draft. I don't think he has the upside some of these other corners have as far as potential goes, but he's a genuine person off the field, and this is a guy who shows he's going to work for it. So I think Meeks is probably one of the safer corners. I think Holder might bring a little more to the table, but Meeks is definitely the safer player. I know you're going to make a case for Meeks here. What would you like to say, Ryan? You're the truth.
You basically covered it, buddy.
I mean, this guy comprehends angles. Like when they were interviewing him for draftwire.com, this guy talked about the angles receivers take. And he puts a huge emphasis on balancing his feet, balance, and angles. So this guy's sharp. He brings something different to the table. And while I have Holder graded slightly higher, Meeks is the safer player to take. And a lot of people have Meeks a lot higher than I do. I mean, Jonah Tolles, who's a huge draft scout, I watched one of his film sessions when he was a freshman at Texas Tech. Jonah believes Meeks is a first rounder. He also still believes Jair Alexander is the #1 corner in this entire draft, not named Minkah Fitzpatrick. So, I mean, Jonah's a smart guy. So if he's talking about Meeks, then Meeks is definitely someone who could surge up these boards. I mean, the man, zone, and press coverage is there. He really covers a lot of things on tape. So, yeah, that's our number 16 corner. Number 17 is Devin Davis out of UTSA. We interviewed him. He's not going to be at the Combine, but he is going to have a pro day on March 28th. He did well against Corey Robertson out of Southern Miss. He also did well versus Marshall in the 9-7 victory over Chase Laton, who I have a second-round grade on. And we were fortunate enough to interview him. And this guy's a gym rat. He loves watching film, lives, breathes, sleeps football. He might run a 4.3 at his pro day. So he really talked about the importance of the team. So, I mean, Devin's a player that, while I have a 4th-round grade on him, if he had a Combine invite, I think he'd be a 3rd-round pick. I love his tape, but I think the fact that he didn't get a Combine invite makes him a day 3 pick.
Yep.
I love his tape and his attitude, but that's the thing that's probably going to push him back in this class. It's such a deep class. And any other year that was weak at cornerback, Devin would be a 2nd or 3rd round pick. But this is just a very good cornerback class. And it's unfortunate, but that's just how it is. I mean, sometimes you get a really good cornerback class like this one. And you have anything you'd like to say about how it was a pleasure to interview Devin, or do you want to get to number 18, another Alabama cornerback who had a great Senior Bowl week, and we haven't really mentioned him on this podcast at all.
I'm just thinking about basketball because I finally think OKC has GSW figured out. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, I said if you helped Joey and I with the Combine this week, I'd reward you with a NBA draft film session, and I've got the Trae Young versus Kansas tape. All I have to do is put it on my iMovie account, and we can watch it together. And we can actually watch an entire film session. I can send you a link to that tape, and we can actually go through that game play by play, and you can teach me what you're seeing as the draft professor. Because I just feel like you really want to watch Trae Young, and we do need to get a Trae Young film session up. But we'll get the Trae Young and Mark Andrews film sessions up after the Combine because Joey's made you executive producer of the Evolution Network. So that's a prestigious honor. Yeah, maybe, but is it any worse than me making Thomas executive producer for our football department?
It's much better. Don't ever say it's any worse. It's much better. But still.
All right. number 18 is Levi Wallace out of Alabama. I have a 4th-round grade on him. And this guy's 6'0", 173. He earned a starting cornerback spot. Really did well, and he got a Senior Bowl invite. He lined up at both field and boundary cornerback. He can play all the coverage schemes, high football IQ. Levi Wallace is undersized, 4.5 speed, 1-year starter at 6'0", 173. But Levi Wallace had a very good week in Mobile, and he had 15 deflections on tape for Alabama this year. So Levi Wallace is someone who's on my radar. And if he actually does better than what we think, like he's projected to run a 4.5, if he runs a 4.4, he's a guy who might have a case to move up into the 3rd round. And he's a pretty safe prospect. He lacks experience as a starter, but he's got the tools to turn into a successful player down the road. And this is a guy that I really came away impressed with at the Senior Bowl, Levi Wallace. What do you think about Levi Wallace? Have you seen his tape? Or I mean, Alabama had so many. All right. I'll give you a second to talk about Levi Wallace. I do have the number 19 corner, Anthony Texada, but we'll wait for Ryan's thoughts on Levi Wallace. Levi, because I remember watching him on Tuesday as I was walking home from a Kmart, and I found out the Kmart's closing, and I got bored, so I needed to watch some Levi Wallace tape on my phone. I wasn't even on my website. I was just, like, walking, and I saw this tape, and I was impressed with what I saw with Levi Wallace out of Alabama. And it's like, this is a very good cornerback class. So that's why I have a 4th-round grade on him. Do you want to give some thoughts on Levi Wallace, Ryan, or do you want to talk Texada?
Oh, no. I'm all gravy, baby. I'm good, man. You keep going.
All right. Number 19, Anthony Texada out of TCU, 5'10", 170. Didn't get a combine invite, but he had 14 deflections, and his signature game happened against SMU, where he held Cortland Sutton to 0 receptions for 0 receiving yards. And I feel like that's the only reason this guy's in the day 3 conversation. There's a lot of people that have an undrafted grade on him, but it's like, he held Sutton to 0 receptions for 0 receiving yards, so you should draft this guy at some point on day 3. I mean, if he held Cortland Sutton to a goose egg, you have to consider him at some point. I mean, because that's really a testament. Because it's like, there's people that still believe Sutton's a round 1 guy, and this guy held him to an actual goose egg. 0 yards, no receptions, completely shut out Cortland Sutton. So he frustrated both Sutton and Lazard too, and he's a Big 12 corner. So I really like Texada, but he's undersized for a corner. He's going to be a nickel corner, but he struggled versus James Washington. And I don't understand how you could struggle versus James Washington, yet ball out versus Sutton and Lazard, and you're 5'10". This is a guy that's a day 3 pick, but I think there is he could be a boundary corner. I think he's a nickel corner right now, but 5'10", but he blanketed 2 6'4" targets in Lazard and Sutton, so he might be able to play the boundary. I think Texada is a guy people are sleeping on because of that, and that might be the reason I have Sutton and Lazard lower, because of Texada. He balled out. Maybe Texada is a guy we need to look at more at, move up, but he didn't get a combine invite, so he's probably a day 3 pick in this class.
Yes.
So he's probably a guy we do need to look more at, because if he shut out Sutton, that's going to get your attention, but at the same time, he's only 5'10", no combine invite, so he gets cluttered into this draft. But we'll talk about another Senior Bowl cornerback at number 20 here, MJ Stewart out of North Carolina. Yes, you think MJ, you think Tar Heels, you think Jordan. You don't think MJ Stewart, but MJ Stewart is 6'2", 205, had 33 solo tackles, 12 assisted tackles, 45 total tackles, 12 deflections for pass breakups. Stewart also dominated the Senior Bowl, so he's a guy who could surge his way into the 1st round. He excels in man coverage, zone coverage, press coverage. He showed he could play any type of coverage. Thing is, he struggles against quicker receivers. Lamar Jackson threw a target outran Stewart in North Carolina's game versus Louisville, but that was really the only weakness I saw with Stewart. I mean, he will struggle against speedy receivers, but he has all the coverage. He has all the technique. And his Senior Bowl was so dominant that Todd McShay mocked this guy to New England at 31. So I have a 5th-round grade on him, but Todd McShay mocked him to New England at 31. So there is an outside chance that MJ Stewart could creep his way into the 1st round after having 12 deflections this year. I mean, I really like this cornerback on tape. He did get in the same brawl that Mike Hughes got involved in North Carolina, except he didn't get involved. He didn't get expelled from North Carolina for that brawl, whereas Hughes did. So it's scary to think how good this guy could have been with Hughes next to him. So, but yeah, I do think there's some talent with MJ Stewart. He could be a sleeper in this class. I really believe that. I mean, Lamar Jackson struggled some versus North Carolina, and MJ Stewart was a big reason why. He was taking away throwing lanes for Lamar, forcing Lamar outside his comfort zone. So I really think there's talent with MJ Stewart in this class.
I agree. It's definitely a deep class.
I mean, I only have 2 more corners projected as starters, and then the rest of these guys are depth players. So I'm going to get through. Actually, I only have 1 more corner as a projected starter. But after that, I'll let you talk about the NBA, and then we'll quickly run through 22 through 40. So Jamarcus King out of South Carolina. I have a 5th-round grade on this guy. He had 12 deflections. He got a Senior Bowl invite, and cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4. Good football IQ. The thing is, he does not have the strength to win blocks consistently. He gets pushed back by bigger receivers. Receivers with remarkable agility like Christian Kirk can confuse him and get separation with ease. He has trouble moving his hips and keeping his back straight, struggles to defend against the run. I'm not sure where Jamarcus King goes. He's a 5th-round prospect. There's not a threat with Jamarcus King. He's a safe prospect, but he's a borderline starter at best, and he got abused by Mike Williams. I mean, Mike Williams made this guy look like Ray Rice's fiance. It was brutal. That is how badly Mike Williams humiliated Jamarcus King. And Jamarcus King bounced back at the Senior Bowl. He got a combine invite over Dante Sawyer, who some people had graded higher, but Jamarcus King's really my final starting cornerback. And then there's Rashawn Golden, who I did a tape session of, who I watched his tape versus Alabama, and I put everything in slow motion because Draft Breakdown didn't have a Golden film session up, and I was like, you know what? I'm getting a Golden film session up. You guys are lazy, so I'll get a Golden film session up, and this guy can play pretty much every type of defensive back role. He's easily the most versatile defensive back in this draft outside of Minkah Fitzpatrick. And he can play man zone or press effectively. He knows all the coverage schemes. He can blitz off the edge, stop the run. He's an excellent communicator. He's probably the only cornerback I saw making eye contact with a teammate before a play out of every cornerback I've watched in the top 22. This is the only guy that I've seen making eye contact with teammates. Struggles to win blocks as a blitzer. Damian Harris neutralized him on a block. He struggles to keep his back straight and move his hips. He missed the tackle on 4th and goal, but Bo Scarborough had the ball in that situation, and Bo just plowed his way through the end zone. So he also gave Alabama fans the bird after intercepting Jalen Hurts. So that might rub some teams the wrong way. He's clean as far as off-the-field stuff goes, but some teams are going to question his character because he flipped the bird in Tuscaloosa. So I think he's not a starter, but he's a very good plug-and-play player. I have an 83 grade on him. What are your thoughts on Golden before we get to the next Alabama corner and then maybe some NBA stuff? Because I do want to get to some NBA stuff. All the good starting corners are off the board. And
I mean, to be honest, Chris, I mean, as a scout personally, once you get out of like the top 12 to 15, that's usually when you won't be seeing any starters, and that's a very fine line right there. So at this point, it's just, you might see for every 10 kids, one person might have a good start, and that's just realistic.
Yeah, it's like I listed 40 corners because I think 40 corners could get drafted. That doesn't necessarily mean that I think there's 21 starters in this class out of 40 cornerbacks. I think there's 21 that could be starters, but we don't know where these guys are going to end up. And it's so early in the process. And really at this point, it gets a lot shorter. The write-ups get a lot shorter. And I'm going to let you talk about the NBA because Joey's not on the call yet, and I think it'd be a great way to open up this. It's up to you. Do you want to talk about some of the stuff that happened in the NBA last night, or do you want me to keep reading through these cornerbacks?
No, let's just keep reading through the cornerbacks.
Yeah, we'll talk NBA at the end. That's fair. But number 23, Anthony Averett out of Alabama, 6'0", 185, 2-year starter at Alabama's defense. I actually watched some of Averett's tape. Like, Averett made some big plays versus Georgia. We uploaded Isaiah Wynn's tape to YouTube, but I brought up Anthony Averett in the commentary. He has 4.5 speed, and he lacks the strength you want in a cornerback. He struggles to win blocks. I see a backup. I don't see the same tools that Levi Wallace and Minkah Fitzpatrick had on tape, but I do think he's going to be a very good depth cornerback at some point in this draft. Anthony Averett out of Memphis. I mean, there's 4 Alabama cornerbacks in these rankings, and I was really hoping for Kerm's insight today, but he's working at a correction facility or something, or a conviction facility. Like, he's actually working doing community service there, so we're happy for Kerm. So, yeah. Yeah, Danny Johnson out of Southern is the next cornerback. But do you have any thoughts on Averett? Did you see him? He was on the – it's just
drop off out of the top 15. Like I said, the only person that's really caught my eye out of that top 20 was the guy I looked at, which was Monday.
I haven't even mentioned Monday. He's probably the only guy in this top – outside of my top 21. All these cornerbacks are backups at this point. Danny Johnson out of Southern. This is a guy I had a starter grade on, but he disappointed in the Senior Bowl. He only weighed 5'9", 182, and he got beaten coverage on every play. So he's dropped to round 5 as a result. He got exposed in the Senior Bowl worse than Janet Jackson got exposed in Super Bowl 38. That's how badly Danny Johnson got exposed. But I think he's a good 5th-round corner, and he's going to get drafted. Scouts have been to Southern games all year just to see him. And Danny Johnson's my final round 5 corner. We've cleared 24 corners. All the round 5 corners are gone. There's a few round 6 guys. I'm going to start with DJ Reed out of Kansas State. This guy's 5'9", 188. He can play man and zone coverage. He struggles to wrap up tackles. He's terrible against the run. He's not physical enough. He struggles with press coverage due to a limited frame at 5'9", 188. He's not explosive enough. He doesn't jump as high as you'd want him to. I mean, he can be an asset on special teams, and he's a great depth player. He reminds me of TJ Carey of the Raiders, but that's pretty much his ceiling. He's a backup cornerback, DJ Reed. And then after that, I've got Amari Coleman out of Central Michigan, who really dominated in 2016. Kept Corey Davis, James Washington, and Kenny Golladay to under 100 receiving yards in 2016, but he didn't have the same impact in 2017, though. Josh Allen picked him apart, didn't get a Senior Bowl invite. I see a ball hawk corner, but I see a day 3 pick now because Amari Coleman was one of these guys we were really high on at the beginning of the year, but he has really struggled this season, Ryan, and I think that is what makes Amari Coleman a day 3 pick.
I agree 100% on that.
Because it's kind of disappointing. He had all these good games on tape, and he didn't bring that same intensity. Number 27 is a cornerback you like, a cornerback you actually did an article on, Duke Dawson out of Florida. I mean, this guy struggles in coverage. He does not understand the coverage schemes. He's dropping interceptions. He hits hard, though, and he's got good speed and athleticism, which is the reason why you have to like him. But the coverage isn't there. That's why I don't see anything with Duke Dawson, to be honest. But there's people that have 3rd-round grades on Duke Dawson. So this is a guy that
I'm one of those people because I think even though he may have dropped interceptions, you got to remember cornerback. There's a reason they're a cornerback and not a wide receiver because they can't catch the ball as well.
Yeah.
So I think maybe the potential is definitely there because obviously he knows where the ball is at. He understands, hey, I have to jump up and get the ball. I have to defend the receiver and make plays with the ball. He understands that. So that's good. But I guess what I'm saying, though, is I do agree that, yeah, he probably should have dropped some of these interceptions and stuff like that. But I still think that he has so much more potential than at least 10 of these people in your top 20.
Because I'm just curious, because there's a lot of players.
As a scout, I'm shaking my head just because, I mean, you have Ford, a guy healthy, coming from a great program, still ranked lower than some people. And then you also have the same thing with Dawson. Coming from a pretty solid Gator program, that secondary is the defense, the box eight, they're usually pretty good and they pan out to play quite a bit. So, I mean, all this talk about, he's a 4th round, 5th round guy. No. He's definitely.
I have him as my I have him in round 6. Tony Mario has him in round 5, and you and Chris Robbins of Lombardi's Draft Talk have him in round 3. So I'm sort of conflicted with Duke Dawson. His draft range is all over the place, and
okay, what's his height and his weight? We can start with the basics, Chris. Let's go over this variety.
5'10", 202. He's only 5'10", and I don't think he's as good as the other Florida cornerbacks. He's 5'10", 202.
Now, my thing with him was he can tackle and he can make some good tackles. He can do hard hitting tackles for his size too. Some of these guys that you say are 6'1", 6'2", for the love of God, Chris, they go to tackle someone, it looks like they're playing a game of flag football, trying to hold on to somebody's foot so they don't win the race. I mean, it's pathetic.
Yeah, Duke. If you're grading Duke Dawson simply based on hard hitting, he's a top 15 corner. If you're grading him based on coverage, like I do, you absolutely dislike him. Like,
oh yeah, exactly, like I did too. Because obviously Dawson understands the coverage and he understands his awareness, which is why he's able to come up with these big plays as far as knocking the ball down. He may not have the interception, but obviously he understands the coverage.
I disagree. I thought Dawson looked extremely suspect in coverage this year, but this is a prospect we're going to continue to have fun debating about at the Combine. And next,
he did get a Combine invite though.
I have not checked yet. I'm going to be starting the code on the other cornerback rankings. You know what? I'll double check right now. I will double check right now just for you, Ryan, because I know you're a fan of Duke Dawson. So I will double check right now.
He was Dawson Creek before it existed.
Yes, Duke Dawson's in the Combine.
Awesome. I bet he gets a vertical of 32 inches.
Awesome. I swear I hear Joey in the background. Maybe not. If not, that's okay. We'll break down cornerback 28, Kevin Tolliver out of LSU.
Joey's practicing his stopping.
Or maybe Joey's lip syncing. Yes, Joey is lip syncing in the background, Ryan. We'll go with that.
I feel like Joey has a couple of ROs.
But Kevin Tolliver out of LSU is 6'3", 204. He's bigger than Dante Jackson. He had 10 deflections from pass breakups. He had 7 games without a deflection. So he was a much bigger liability than Dante Jackson. I also saw him get burned in coverage. He's a big physical, hard-hitting corner, but he struggles with coverage and coverage schemes. He's not as good as Dante Jackson. I mean, this guy got beat on coverage a lot. He needs to clean that up if he wants to make a roster. I gave him a 75 potential grade. He played next to White in 2016. It is beyond obvious that White carried that secondary, though. Anything on Tolliver before we get to another cornerback that you told me about back in the summer?
Well, I feel like we should get to the quarterback I told you about, since I'm very confident in myself.
All right. Darius Phillips out of Western Michigan. You told me this was a second-round guy in the summer. He gave Sam Darnold some problems in the opener versus USC, but he didn't. I don't know if he got a Combine invite. He did get a Senior Bowl invite, but he struggles with press coverage. He's 5'9". He's undersized, but he can play any type of coverage, and he plays zone coverage like a safety. He's a great man cover corner, but he plays zone like a safety, and I feel like he's one of these cornerback safety hybrid players. But Darius Phillips injured his ankle in the Senior Bowl. That kept him from practicing after day one. And Darius Phillips may not compete in the Combine now. So there's going to be some durability concerns with Darius Phillips moving forward at 5'9", 188. But I do think he has very good tape, like you said.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And that's the final 6th-round corner. I have him at 200 on the draft game, but we've got 10 more cornerbacks, and they're all 7th-rounders, or 11 more cornerbacks, 30 through 40, and they're all 7th-rounders. Cameron Kelly out of San Diego State, I have him at 30. He's good boundary cornerback. He's not as deadly in coverage as Kazee. He's bigger and more physical at 6'2", 200, but he's not as dominant or consistent as Kazee was coming out of last year's class, and he frustrated Cedric Wilson on tape, who had a third-round grade on. So even with his size and physical ability, he doesn't cover #1 receivers consistently yet. That's an issue for me, but he has good coverage techniques. There's no threats. He's a safe player, but a depth player, a very good depth player. And number 31 is Michael Joseph out of Dubuque, the winner of the Cliff Harris Award for the top cornerback in Division III, went to the Senior Bowl, and he's lined up pretty much everywhere on the secondary. He struggles with zone and press coverage, but he dominates in man coverage. He had great man coverage in the Senior Bowl, but he played lackluster competition in Division III, and he didn't make a splash in the Senior Bowl, though. So Michael Joseph's one of these players you're going to have to keep an eye on. And then you've got Tony Brown out of Alabama, great blitzer, ball hawk corner, but he struggles in coverage. So Tony Brown's a player that really didn't step up to the plate for Alabama, but he's had limited action, whereas Michael Joseph out of Dubuque really did okay at the Senior Bowl. I know there's some people who have him higher, but I'm guessing you're not a fan of these corners. You see pretty much backups at this point with these two corners.
I mean, 50-50, like I said. I mean, for every 10, I'd say you get one, maybe two that are going to overly impress. I mean, I think a lot of it depends on the individual, and then a lot of it also depends on the coaches. I mean, let's face it. I mean, there's great players out there that never got their chance because of the coaching. So I think some of it is the coaching, so you do have to watch game film, but a lot of it, too, though, is still probably do it for every 10. You know what I mean? You can't expect everyone to be starter, and that's what separates everybody. You know, you can't, not everyone can be a winner, and that's what people don't realize.
Yeah, and Perry Nickerson out of Tulane is 33. Perry Nickerson went the entire full game versus Oklahoma without giving up a mistake in coverage. All of Baker's big throws were to teammates, and Baker was 0 for 3 when throwing near Perry Nickerson in that game. Yes, he went 14 for 20 against Tulane, but he was 0 for 3 when throwing near Perry Nickerson in coverage. And Perry Nickerson is good man coverage. He lacks the zone and press to succeed. He lacks the speed to keep up with fast targets, lacks the strength to press. Anthony Miller knocked him flat on the ground on a running play. So if a 5'11" receiver like Anthony Miller is knocking you flat on the ground, that shows me that you're a backup. But I do think he can be a good depth player in the right roles, because to force Baker 0 for 3 when throwing near you in coverage, that's pretty impressive for a cornerback, and he is going to be running in the combine. So this combine is going to be huge for Perry Nickerson if he wants to get drafted. We're at number 34 right now, Ryan. That's Cameron Moore out of Boston College. I like his teammate Iadom a lot better. I thought Cameron Moore was a little bit underwhelming on tape. Number 35 is Heath Harding. This guy's a ball hawk. I love how he fights for the ball, but he doesn't hit hard enough, and he needs to play with more intensity. I gave him a 70 grade. He's not as good as people think he is. 36, Dietrich Nichols out of South Florida. This is a guy that I regret not ranking higher, because this guy had 12 deflections. He doesn't just have a good football IQ. He's tough. He's physical. He's extremely hard-hitting, good feet, great tackler, better ball skills. I mean, he gets pushed around on running plays, but he's very good in coverage. And Dietrich Nichols is one of these late-round guys who could be someone to keep an eye on. And then the final four corners we have, Ryan, to wrap things up: Jalen Davis out of Utah State, Grant Haley out of Penn State, Demetrius Monday out of Kent State, and the number 40 cornerback on this list is Shawan Lurie out of Northern Illinois. So those are the cornerback rankings, and I could see Jalen Davis going undrafted. He's got good man coverage. He's hard hitting, but he got ejected for targeting versus Wisconsin. Kainaku had the same issue. He went undrafted. Grant Haley out of Penn State, I really liked his tape, but he struggles to win blocks. He also misses easy tackles. Monday did not impress me with zone coverage, but I think his man and press coverage is very good. And I know you talked about Monday, Ryan, as one of these guys who could be a steal late in the draft. he did not get a combine invite, Demetrius Monday. And I ranked him as my second lowest corner, so Monday did not get a combine invite. Nope. Yeah, I only have one corner ranked behind him, but Perry Nickerson out of Tulane did not get a Perry Nickerson out of Tulane got a combine invite that you could argue he deserved. Jalen Davis, I'm seeing if Jalen Davis got a combine invite. No, Jalen Davis did not get a combine invite either. I'm shell-shocked by this, Ryan. D. Delaney, who struggled on tape, did get a combine invite. I mean, we were high on D. Delaney at the beginning of the year, but he didn't. He got a combine invite over him, and then the final corner in these rankings was Shawan Lurie out of Northern Illinois, who did not get a combine invite either. So 3 of my final 4 cornerbacks did not get combine invites, and at least 10 to 20% of the cornerbacks in these rankings did not get combine invites. What are your thoughts on that, Ryan? It's a very deep.
You failed.
What?
You failed.
I didn't fail, Joey. I broke down all 40 cornerbacks without you. I passed in spades.
And they did not go to the combine. Because I don't know if that interference is from my end or not, but I know I'm standing in the middle of downtown Jacksonville. I just got done with my rush, buddy.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to let Joey take over the rest of the show and break down his top corners. And then when Joey has to go into work, Ryan can talk about the NBA if he still wants to go on the call. But I broke down 1 through 40 in my cornerback rankings. So go ahead. Go ahead and rank your corners. If you don't want to be as detail-oriented as me, that's fine. Go ahead and rank your corners. I will listen from this point forward.
Well, I'll do my best without them right in front of my face. I'm currently standing outside of a also drinking a frozen drink after a run. Yeah, so here I gotta go number 1, Minka Fitzpatrick. Easily, he has superstar written all over him. And I wouldn't be surprised if he had a tattoo of a superstar and says that's me. So, Fitzpatrick, probably the best player in this draft. Like I said, I have no names in front of me. I'm just trying to go off the top of my head.
I have Josh Jackson at number 2, but I have Josh Jackson, the Iowa cornerback, at number 2 in my cornerback rankings, but I could see why you would have someone else higher. I could see why you'd have Oliver or Jair higher. I put Dante Jackson at 3, Holton Hill at 4, Mike Hughes at 5, Oliver at 6. Those are really the 6 corners, I think, that could develop into Pro Bowl players in this class.
Yeah. I think that as far as pure skill goes, I think the number 2 guy, as far as pure skill and upside, he has a bigger floor, which means there's a better bust chance for him. Pretty much a boomer bust prospect is Isaiah Oliver. Great in all facets of the game, but as we know, had some issues. So there's where the bust prospect comes in, and seeing the interviews for him, the interviews are going to be extremely important. But at the same time, can't deny the talent. My number 3 guy is Josh Jackson. As I've said before with Chris, I don't know if I said it on the broadcast or not, he reminds me a lot of Jonathan Joseph, guy who will be a solid cornerback for years, had some Pro Bowls, elevate to one of the better corners in the league. I don't think he has the upside that Oliver does, but we know he doesn't have the upside of Fitzpatrick.
Yeah,
But
I gave
he's one
Minka
of
a
those guys,
98.
I don't think he has the bust factor of Oliver, but I don't think he has the upside of Oliver. So I think if you're looking for a safer pick among the two, it would be Jackson. But if you're looking for a chance to get somebody that could potentially become someone on Fitzpatrick's level, you go Oliver.
Yeah, this is the thing with me. I think the top 5 safest corners and the top 5 most upside corners are extremely different. I would say Oliver's probably the 3rd safest corner after Jackson and Minka, but I'd also say that he's the 6th best corner based on potential. So we don't agree.
Well, there is no such thing as a truly safe prospect. I mean, any one of them has a chance to be great, and every one of them has a chance to blow it.
Yeah.
The thing you have to remember is who has the least chance to blow it. That's, so, and then mark that with their upside, and I think Oliver's going to end up being the most athletic and have the biggest upside out of it.
Yeah, so who would be the best corner after that? Because you got a lot of good corners in Jackson, Holton Hill, Mike Hughes, but all of them have some form of issue with discipline or off-the-field stuff. Carlton Davis doesn't want to move to nickel corner, so I could see you pushing a guy like Jair up to number 4 out of Louisville as your number 4 corner. But there's a lot of corners in this class. I mean, it's easy to lose track of how many good corners there are in this draft.
Yeah, I have. I'm not sure who I would have as. Give me some corners and try to get this off the top of my head, Chris.
Isaac Iadom out of Boston College really impressed me with his tape. Yeah, Boston College corner. He had 3 deflections in the Senior Bowl game, and he really did well during the practices. I think Isaac Iadom's actually a riser in this class because he held Equanimeous St. Brown to 3 yards and 1 reception. He held Deion Kane to 3 receptions for 25 yards. He held Auden Tate to 2 receptions for 12 yards. And he had statement games in all of those 3 games against those NFL corners. So I think Isaac Iadom out of Boston College is a riser. I have him at number 8 in these rankings. I don't know if you've seen any of Iadom yet from Grace's alma mater, but I think he is a riser in this class. I really do.
Well,
My back pain.
I know I wanted Jair Alexander at 5, but I'm not sure where I'm going at 4 at the moment. Which I know, yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, Isaac Iadom is there. There's Holton Hill, Mike Hughes, Dante Jackson, the LSU corner Ryan did an article about. Tarvaris McFadden.
Yeah, Dante Jackson I really do like. For some reason, I was thinking he was going back to school. I'll put him at 4 because he's a guy that I really like. I love his back pedal, love a lot of things about him. So I really thought he helped with a very dynamic defense for LSU last year.
Yeah, I have him at number 3, so that's a good pick for Dante Jackson. Then you could put Jair at 5. Because Ryan still believes he's a top 5 corner.
Jackson went back to school.
Yeah,
I thought he was a junior that went back to school.
He declared for the draft. And
well, can't really blame him for that.
No, you really can't. And this is the thing I've heard with Jair Alexander. He's fierce. He's not fiery, but like vocal, but he is fierce. He plays with intensity. He's a competitor. And coaches at Louisville say this guy plays with more conviction than any cornerback in the entire draft. And he was a captain this year. So even if he's missed games due to injuries, that conviction is going to sell teams in the interview process. So he could easily be back in the first round.
That's why a lot of people, when they have him as like 9 and 10 or so, it's like, I'm not shying away from him because his talent shines through. But yeah,
injury history, you know, it's going to be a factor. It may not be as big a factor for me as it is other people, but it is going to be a factor.
Yeah, and he got injured twice this year. So
yeah,
that's really the concern. It's like he really doesn't have very many weaknesses as far as tape goes, but durability is a huge threat with Jair Alexander, and he has an injured knee, and teams are going to consider him lanky for a corner, so they're worried about his injury history. So that's really the thing with Jair.
Just like with Oliver, the interview process is going to be important. Alexander, it's all about the physicals. What teams clear him? What teams say this is going to have a chance to recur? I mean, there were a lot of teams that had a death rate on Todd Gurley because of his recurring knee injuries and how bad his knee was. But then there were a lot of teams with A grades on him. And I assume that's probably going to how it is with Jair Alexander. It's because he's going to have some teams that say this guy can't be drafted because there's a chance that knee injury will recur. That's pretty significant. And then there are going to be teams that say, hey, clear this guy. And, you know, they may get something like a early situation where he turned out to be, yes, there was a high injury, but he was fully healed. So they just put an A grade on him and went. And there's going to be a chance that you're going to get a guy, you're going to draft him, and halfway through the season, he's going to rip his ACL out. So, I mean, yeah, that's a concern with players like that.
Ryan, what are your thoughts on Joey's top 5 here? You got Minka at 1, Oliver at 2, Josh Jackson at 3, Dante Jackson at 4, and Jair Alexander at number 5. Any thoughts on this top 5 before I give Joey a list of players that he can put at number 6?
Yes. Oliver and Alexander in those positions makes me want to start coaching, and so terrible on those two. Everything else, mostly okay. But to me, Jackson is probably more the safest corner in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, Holton Hill out of Texas is my number 4 corner, but he failed 3 drug tests. I know Joey's not going to pick him at number 6. He did have great tape versus Lazard in Washington this year, but I know Joey's not going to pick him. Mike Hughes got arrested at North Carolina for getting into a fight, so Joey's not going to pick him at number 6 just because the character is a concern with those 2 corners, even though I have him at 4 and 5 in my rankings. Carlton Davis at Auburn held Calvin Ridley to 3 receptions, 38 yards. But he also said that he refuses to move to nickel cornerback. And that's going to rub teams the wrong way. That attitude is extremely toxic. If you say you're only going to play outside at cornerback and not move to nickel, teams like the Patriots are going to take you off their board, especially if you're saying you only want to play for this team, this team, this team. That is going to piss off a lot of NFL people in the interview rooms.
Yeah, most of these guys get into concerns with character, from attitude.
I mean, was it about something cool or something stupid?
I mean, I feel like Joey's either going to pick Isaac Yiadom out of Boston College or Tarvaris McFadden simply because their attitude and character is better than some of the corners that I put on my rankings. And Joey's going to take that into consideration when assessing these cornerbacks.
Yeah, McFadden is a guy that I'm high on. So that would be a guy that, McFadden's a guy I really like. So that'd be a guy that I'd put at 6. He doesn't have anything, as you say, he doesn't have concern. He's got high upside. And he's ready for the pro game. But
yeah, he had 10 deflections this year. 5 of them came in Florida State's final 3 games. So he did get hot at the right time. And outside of Callaway and Robertson, he didn't really keep a big-time receiver in check this year. But Florida State is a great cornerback factory. I mean, with the corners they produced over the years, P.J. Williams, Ronald Darby, with Jalen Ramsey, they have established themselves as a cornerback factory in college football.
And when it comes to a corner who can do it all, he can return kicks, he can do pretty much anything asked of him. Yeah, he can move anywhere around the field. So, I mean, as far as overall game, he may have the best overall game out of any corner in the draft.
Yeah. Denzel Ward out of Ohio State is still there at number 7. Isaac Iadom is there. J.C. Jackson of Maryland's a player I really liked. Nick Nelson of Wisconsin had 21 deflections. I'm just scrolling through this to try to find a corner you might like as far as tape goes. And I'm not sure if this is the point where you're going to take a corner that has those off-the-field concerns and look past that. Are we at that point now at number 7 where you're willing to look past that if their tape is that good? Or you want to go with someone like Quentin Meeks out of Stanford, who played shortstop as a kid before converting to football, and he's the son of Ron Meeks. Because I know a lot of people in the draft community like him.
Yeah, like I like Meeks. Problem is, I don't think his ceiling is as high. I think he'll be a solid cornerback. Ceiling is high. I'm actually going to go with Holton Hill here. There's just too much talent. There's going to be a team that says, you know what, bring him in here. We can, straighten around, and it's going to be a non-issue for him.
Yeah, he kept Washington to under 100 yards 2 years in a row, and he kept Lazard to under 100 yards this year, and his coverage was good. And it's like if he didn't get dismissed from Texas, he would be in the round 1 conversation right now. I feel like at some point a team is going to look past that. But at the same time, if he fails another drug test, he's going to fall to round 6 or 7 where Alfonso Denard went. Remember Denard? He was teammates with Prince Amukamara in Nebraska, that team of all-stars back in the day. I mean, Denard never really panned out, but he was a second-round corner. He had a history of failing drug tests, and he fell to the Patriots in round 7 and didn't make the team. And, I mean, that's Holton Hill's floor.
Here's the thing.
But his ceiling is through the roof.
Remember when Josh Gordon came into the league, Roger Goodell automatically snagged him with his first drug test tape before he'd ever gotten into camp. I wouldn't doubt if that happened here.
Yeah.
It's just, you were drafted, you have a history of drug problems, you get slapped with an automatic fail before you're even officially signed to the team. That was what it was. And that could potentially happen here with Holton Hill.
And if it does, he would drop to the day 3 territory. But right now, I'm willing to look past it. But if he fails another drug test, I probably will move him in that rounds 4 through 6 range that Walter Cherepinski has Holton Hill listed in. So, and Charlie Campbell. So I'll probably move him down in that range if he fails another drug test. But for now, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt because I think the upside to be a Marcus Peters or Tremaine Johnson type corner is there. But if he fails another drug test, he's a day 3 pick. Holton Hill's on the hot seat, but at number 7, I can understand that ranking.
And at 8, I will go Meeks because Meeks is one of those guys, as I said, I don't think he has the upside of these other guys, but I don't think he has the floor of these other guys either. So I think he'll be a really solid corner for somebody.
Yeah, and I mean, there's people that have him in the 2nd or 1st round, which I think is too high, but I do think he'd be a good value pick in round 3 or round 4.
Yeah.
All right, the top corner left on your board is Mike Hughes, who I have at number 5. He did get arrested at North Carolina, and he's only a 1-year starter at Central Florida, but he led Central Florida to a perfect season. I don't know. I don't have this. He got into a brawl, apparently. Him and another cornerback on that team got into a brawl. He got arrested. The other corner didn't. So he was.
So it's not like when Baker Mayfield freaked out and ran into a wall.
Yeah. It's not like when Baker was drunk. He was sober and he got arrested for getting into a fight. Yes.
Yeah, that's a little more of an issue than being drunk, freaking out and running into a wall and getting tackled.
What happened though? I mean, like, did the guy provoke him? I mean, the guy touch him and then just broke out, or what?
I don't know. I wish we had more details on this, but Mike Hughes is a guy, even though I have a round 2 grade on him, Mark has a round 1 grade on him. He could slip to day 3 if more issues about this fight get leaked leading up to the draft. So you're a little bit weary about Hughes for that reason.
What's the player?
Mike Hughes.
Okay, I got you.
I think he's a safe pick in round 2, but you're a little bit more weary, Joey, because of this incident.
I have, because it's not only the incident. It's like I was in Mayfield when he got arrested until I found out what happened, watched the tape, which with Mayfield, it was hey, I witnessed, this happened. The police were talking to me. I was drunk. I freaked out. I tried to run. I was so drunk I ran into the wall. Tackled me. I said, "Oh shit, just take me in," which is, about as close to admitting I fucked up as anybody's gonna come. And that was that.
Yeah, and it's priceless how Colin Cowherd is trying to create shock value.
It's not like, when you have to put everything in perspective, and right now we don't have that perspective to put it into.
Yeah, we don't have all the evidence or all the facts. It's like the Joe Mixon incident without the videotape. We don't have the evidence to say one way or the other if this is deliberate or not, and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And I want a quick take on something before we get to your number 9 corner. Colin Cowherd said that he would take Baker Mayfield off his board because he couldn't outrun the cops. He's just saying that to create shock value. I mean,
that was just because you can reverberate it. People walk in. That was a television rating statement.
Yeah.
We've seen Baker Mayfield. We know he's not overly athletic, but we've seen him outrun linebackers. It's like it's not that he couldn't outrun the cops, because if Cowherd had seen the tape, which I'm sure he has, he would know that Mayfield turned around and ran into a wall. Okay.
But he has to create shock value on his show to get people to tune in. And
exactly.
Like, a lot of his hot takes are strictly to create shock value.
Yeah, every show does it in some way. It's not a thing. It was just, this is how he chose to do it. And I'm sure, there are people, he might have gained a couple viewers, at least short term.
I'm pretty certain.
They stick around as long-term viewers. So, I mean,
I'm pretty certain Skip Bayless as Baker Mayfield is his number 1 QB, and Shannon Sharp will say he's not the number 1 QB just so they can debate, or he'll go Skip. But yeah, number 9 for you is probably Isaac Yiadom, the Boston College corner, simply because you're more sold on him than you are with Mike Hughes. This fight or whatever. He's the best corner after Hughes on my rankings. I put him at 8. And it's like, for you, it's like, okay, this guy had a good Senior Bowl week. He played well. There's really hard leading weaknesses. You're getting a good floor player and a good boundary corner at the very worst in the NFL. So it's like, that's probably your number 9 guy. And then after that, it gets really difficult for you to project these guys.
So, yeah, I like you. You just did a really nice job at the combine. Not the combine, Senior Bowl. So, yeah, let's go ahead and put Mike Hughes there.
Don't you meant Yiadom? Hughes wasn't at the Senior Bowl. Hughes was the Central Florida corner.
Whatever.
But we'll put Hughes at 10 behind Yiadom, the Boston College corner, because it's like at this point you're too confused. It's like, you're not confused. It's just, it's a pain in the ass to keep ranking corners.
I stuck with names, and you're asking me to do this stuff off the top of my head. So, I mean, of course I'm going to get things twisted around. I'm terrible with names. That's why I have a list for everything I do.
My number 11 corner was Denzel Ward out of Ohio State.
I guess why are you guys so low on Mike T? Is it really because of the play?
I have him at number 5, and Joey has him at number 10 because of the brawl. Okay? We both have a top 10 cornerback grade on him. But Joey has him much lower than I do because of the brawl. And he might drop even more.
Well, he could drop more, he could move up more. I just don't know enough about what happened with this darn fight.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like, as long as that question is out there, it's like, what do you expect? You know, it's like, you know, I'm not going to just throw somebody at them blindly.
Yeah, I put Denzel Ward out of Ohio State at 11. And this is a guy that Joey might move up because Ohio State has a history with corners, just like Florida State. And Denzel Ward did have a big year. I know Denzel Ward's been featured in the top 10 in some mock drafts, but he's only 5'10". But he hits really hard. I mean, Gus Johnson basically said that this guy brought people to a barbecue with how hard he hits, but he's only 5'10". And I've seen him in the first round. I've seen him in the top 10. I don't think he deserves to be picked that high, but I do think he's a good day 2 prospect. And Ryan thinks he could be worth a first rounder with a strong combine. And I can agree with that to a point. But I'm guessing Denzel. Have you seen Denzel Ward, Joey?
I have questions about his hips and whether he can turn quickly in coverage on that level to be a top 10, top 15 pick. If he answers those questions at the combine, which very possibly could, you know, is like I would go from a second rounder, you know, to, you know, I could see him going in the first. But, you know, it's like, yeah, you're right. He's good in run defense. But I need to see her hit out of him. I mean, it's one thing to be more athletic. It's one thing to be able to hit. But you have to be able to turn and run in the NFL.
Yeah. And Denzel Ward would be number 11 for you, but he's a player who could move up into round 1. There's a few of those players. Like, I had McFadden at 14. I had Denzel Ward at 11. I had Jair at 12. But I pointed out how all those corners could move into round 1 with strong combines. It's that wide open. I'm not going to mention number 18 on my rankings, who I think you might put at 12, is Levi Wallace out of Alabama. This guy finally earned a starting cornerback job, and he had a good Senior Bowl week. So he has shown enough on tape to be considered a future starter. And this is a guy that I feel like you're going to put at 12 because he went to Alabama. He's only a one-year starter, though, but he could be a good project on day 3.
Wallace was inconsistent. One, I would see some plays and be like, damn, this guy's the first round pick. The other plays would be like, yeah, he just made a play a few seconds ago that was a top 10 flash. You know, it's like, what the hell is this? This is third, fourth round fodder. You know, so, I mean, that's my problem with him. But, like you said, the fact that he did go to Alabama. So,
I feel like you're going to put Rand.
When you get past 10, you need me like, the further down you go, it's like,
I'm trying to see if you'll get to 15. I know you're not going to get to 40 like me, but I'm going to see if you get to 15 or 20 because Denzel Ward 11, Levi Wallace at 12. I feel like Anthony Texada, my number 19 corner, is going to be your number 13 corner because he held Cortland Sutton to a goose egg, but he didn't get a combine invite.
I'm a huge Texada fan. Just like what Texada is his size and strength. I mean, yeah, not really there on that. He did go to TCU, I believe.
Yep. Texas Christian, TCU.
So, I mean, you know he's going to be ready defensively, but when it comes to the same problems I had with King from a year or two ago, when everybody was saying, you know, he's the number one corner, and I was saying he may not even be a corner. He may end up being a safety because he has no strength. It's the same thing I say with Pick. I think he could end up having to move to safety because he doesn't have the physical presence. He has the skills, but he doesn't have the physical presence.
And he's 5'10", 170, so you could be right. I mean, the next corner...
Because, I mean, he has first round talent.
He has first-round tape. I mean, he held Cortland Sutton to a goose egg, and he held Lazard in check, too. So, he has first-round talent. But he's going to go in the fourth round because of his size.
You know, that first-round skills, fifth-round size, he'll probably end up going somewhere around mid to second to third round.
He didn't get a combine invite, which is why I feel like he'll be a rough fourth-round pick, but he'll be a steal in round 4.
Yeah, I can see that. But he's got the talent to be a first-round pick. I love him as a player, but that size, I mean, he's just small.
That size and the fact that he's not getting a combine invite are why I think he'll be a day 3 pick. Because him not getting a combine invite was blasphemous. But it is what it is.
Yeah, so Texada if Texada could get up to 10 pounds of muscle, I think he'd be fine. 15 pounds of muscle, I think he'd be great. But I don't think his spread will allow that.
Yeah, it's like he should have been invited to the combine. He wasn't. Just like Devrin Davis, him and Devrin both got snubbed from the combine, but Texada is a player that you'd probably rank ahead of Devrin just based on what you've seen on tape. But number 20 is a guy who Todd McShay mocked to the Patriots in the first round. MJ Stewart out of North Carolina had a very good Senior Bowl week, frustrated Lamar Jackson at some times on tape. So I don't think he's the 31st best player in this draft. I gave him an early round 5 grade, but there is an outside chance that if he continues to dominate at the combine and the pro day, he could move into the late first round. I feel like he has too much ground to make up at this point, and he was involved in the same brawl that got Mike Hughes expelled, so there might be some character concerns that we're not aware of, but I do believe MJ Stewart is going to be a very good player. The question is, where is he going to go? Is he going to go in round 5 like I'm projecting him, or is he going to ace every ounce of this draft process and manage to go in the late first round where Todd McShay has him? Because for Todd McShay to say, you know what, I'm moving this guy into round 1 because he was that good in the Senior Bowl, that tells me a lot.
Yeah, that's, I'm not as high on him as you are. But, I mean, I'll just be honest with you. I'm not as high on him as you are.
I had him as the 20th best cornerback. But you don't even think he's worthy of that notion at number 20. All right.
I'm just not as high on him.
There's some other corners I had. I'll scroll through the back half of these corners. I mentioned Jamarcus King, South Carolina corner. The other corner I watched tape on YouTube was Rashawn Golden out of Tennessee. Tennessee, he's actually showed some decent tape at times, but he was also pretty inconsistent as far as winning blocks. I mean, Golden might be a nice plug-and-play player for depth. Have you seen Golden? Anthony Averett, the teammate, Alabama corner, another Bama corner. He's undersized. I don't think he's as talented as Wallace. Danny Johnson out of Southern struggled in Mobile. Like, I had a round 3 grade on him prior to Senior Bowl week, but he really struggled in Mobile. And those are pretty much my round 5 corners, 1 through 24.
I saw Golden. I like some of what Golden has. I think 14, 15 is a pretty good range for him at this point.
Yeah, because I put DJ Reed at Kansas State at 25, but he's very undersized. Amari Coleman, great junior year, horrible senior year. Duke Dawson's a corner that Ryan likes. He thought me putting him at 27 was way too low. I had Jalen Davis at 36, but he didn't get a combine invite.
What school did Dawson go to? 'Cause I've
Florida.
seen him.
Duke Dawson went to Florida.
Oh, him, yes.
Because Tony Mario is a day 3 grade on him, but Ryan thinks he's a day 2 player. So,
well, he has a lot of raw skill. He needs to refine it. I think number 15 is good range because he's got a lot of upside, but he also has a pretty steep floor. So, I mean, another boomer bust, but number 15 is a good spot for him.
yeah, I put Kevin Tolliver at LSU at 28. He could be number 16, but then I got Darius Phillips out of Western Michigan, got injured in the Senior Bowl. So there's going to be questions. Is he healthy for the combine? Cameron Kelly out of San Diego State played with DeMonte Kazee. He's 6'2", 200. He's bigger and more physical than Kazee, but he's not as effective in coverage. I put him at 30, but Michael Joseph out of Dubuque had a good Senior Bowl week, and he won the Cliff Harris Award in Division III. So Michael Joseph would probably be one of those late-round corners that potentially enters your top 20. I'm just scrolling through names on this list at this point. I know you were high on Jalen Davis. I'm guessing you'd put Jalen in the top 20. I like Dietrich Nichols a lot, though, as a round 7 guy who I put at 36, like one spot ahead of Jalen Davis. I mean, Mac Brown talked about how good he was on tape and really sold me on him. So I think Nichols could be a great late-round pick out of South Florida. I think him and Augie Sanchez are both worth flyers on day 3 at some point. But yeah, you talked about how Jalen Davis was a 2nd or 3rd round player, but he got ejected for targeting. He's not at the combine. So there are some things with Jalen Davis. You want to talk about Jalen Davis really quickly with what you saw on tape, the Utah State corner? Because, I mean, at this point, we're basically just shooting darts at a board.
So he's a good enough player. Yeah. Nothing special. At the same time, nothing, bad about him.
Yeah. That will pretty much cover it for our Google Hangout. We will still be on TalkShoe, though, covering other aspects of the NFL draft, including the combine, some players who got snubbed, and some other things on TalkShoe really quickly before we sign off. So we're done on Google Hangouts, but we'll be back on